So I thought I might as well talk about something. This is actually super controversial. I really hope this video doesn't get removed, but there's a chance this video gets removed and maybe I get a strike or something. I don't know. Something bad might happen. But this is going to be super controversial, and this is where I believe every pill is wrong. The red pill, the blue pill, the black pill, every one of them is wrong. And they're wrong because the way that they look at love fundamentally, I think, is wrong. So what do I mean by that? So the blue pill is wrong because being yourself, one, clearly doesn't get women and people experience reality. The red pill is wrong because women aren't turned on by money and they will cheat on rich guys all the time, even guys who have status. And three, the black pill is wrong because women will also cheat on guys even if they have really good looks.
And that's when guys get cheated on too. Yeah, looks open the door, but they don't lock it.
So this is where the pragma pill comes in. Now, you might be saying, what the hell, pragma? Well, where the fuck did that word come from? Well, we'll get into that. So the pragma pill is composed of different categories, and there's actually 7, but I'm just going to make it really simple, and I'm going to say there's 2 categories in this case. The main ones are ludus eros and philia pragma. Now, these are actually Greek words, by the way. So ludus means playful love, so that's sort of like flirtatious, curiosity, and excitement. And eros means passionate love, so that's basically like lust and a lot of sex. And philia means deep friendship, and pragma means the contract phase, pretty much like when you marry somebody, or that's what it would be assigned for when it comes to changing those words over from Greek to English. Now, the pragma pill is a little bit different because the way it views love is actually quite foreign to how we view love today, and it's actually very contradictory as well about love itself and what the word love means. So, like I said before, the word originates from Greece, and I'm going to be using these words, ludus eros and philia pragma. So whenever I say ludus eros, always assume the more exciting and the more lustful sort of love, and whenever I say philia pragma, then always assume marriage and the long contract sort of phase of love. Now, the pragma pill basically says there are different kinds of relationships, and trying to mix these kinds of different relationships together, like ludus eros with philia pragma, is a complete disaster, and it's a complete mistake. Now, this means that marriage is not actually about love. In this case, ludus and eros were never meant to be part of love, and it never should be, actually. It's supposed to be about commitment to a cause, specifically to make sure that the family legacy continues. And yes, by the way, I am actually saying that that passionate feeling that you might get for a woman, or that feeling that a woman might get for you when it comes to being passionate, and the feeling that women get during the honeymoon phase, that actually is not true love. And mixing that with marriage is a disaster, and that leads to complete disaster, and it doesn't work. And it's why so many marriages fail today, or they end up in a complete shit show where there's arguments between the two nonstop. In most cases, the woman is extremely controlling, and I don't really probably need to explain that too much because I think a lot of men and women actually grew up in that sort of a household, so hopefully you understand that. So the pragma pill has 2 main parts, like I said before: ludus and eros and philia pragma. Ludus and eros is the exciting feeling of love, once again, and philia and pragma is the commitment side of love. Ludus and eros are what people experience when first dating one another or seeing one another. Usually this phase lasts 6 to 36 months, and this is where you usually develop curiosity and intense feelings for them. Yes, there's literal science behind this as well. My channel is all about teaching the truth, and I think this is one of the most uncomfortable truths. Ludus and eros is where looks and charisma, otherwise known as game, matter the most and are valued most by both sexes, not just men and not just women. Both of them value this when it comes to ludus and eros, and that sort of love. Philia and pragma is the long-term contract phase of love, where both parties desire children to continue their legacy. Now, philia and pragma is where resources and masculine frame, in this case, are the most sought after. This means that pragma is where priority of the relationship is no longer about the relationship between each other. In fact, it's actually completely ignores that, and it says the family is the most important, especially putting the children as the top priorities, pretty much. This is incredibly, incredibly important, and I think this is completely misunderstood in today's society, and it's going to be a little very controversial afterwards. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to say philia and pragma, when it comes to being most valued, is when men have resources and masculine frame. Now, what's crazy is in today's day and age, masculine frame does not exist amongst men. In like 99.99% of men do not possess masculine frame, and they may possess resources. So what's crazy is even when it comes to the philia pragma side of things, people are screwed because men completely lost masculine frame. And even when it comes to ludus and eros, people are screwed because so many people, both men and women, have no game. Sometimes it's like really sad because talking to them is boring as hell. That's your sort of example. And they might have looks. So that's like their one thing that might be going for them. But most of them, they're not particularly, I would say, very interesting and very like, oh, wow, talking to them is really interesting, right? You learn a lot. They might be funny, something like that, right? So this is, I think this is just completely not talked about, and probably the reason is because of the 1700s, which we'll eventually get to. Now, the bottom line is, this is once again very controversial. Nobody, and I really do mean this, nobody is going to meet all of your needs here. They never have in history, and they never will. And it's as irresponsible, in my opinion, as having one-itis for somebody and believing that one person is the one and the only one. There isn't anyone else who can fulfill all those forms of love. It's only one person. Believing that the person you marry is the person you do everything with and you should do everything with is like believing in one-itis, where they are the one and the only one. This is completely delusional, in my opinion. The idea of love and marriage being linked together never actually existed, by the way, throughout all of human history, ever. And I know that sounds crazy. You're saying, what? People, whenever they would get married, they never feel love for each other, that sort of love feeling? No. In fact, that was actually discouraged amongst how many civilizations? Take a guess. 95% of civilizations throughout all of human history actually despised and frowned upon the ludus eros kind of love. Yeah, you heard that right, 95%. And the other 5%, by the way, who still didn't believe in it, they believed that eros, ludus eros, was possible within a philia pragma relationship, but it was not supposed to be the foundation. And it's crazy. There's not a single civilization that basically says ludus and eros was supposed to be part of the contract phase of philia pragma, of marriage, basically. Which is, to me, I look at this, I would look at that information and I'd go, wow, I've been living a lie my entire life. And it would sort of make sense because if you look at society, in my opinion, society is only going downhill. And I'll make a video on why feminism is pretty much the downhill of society, which I'll sort of talk a little bit about that right now. Or soon anyways. Now, once again, all of these problems when it comes to ludus and eros being mixed with philia and pragma didn't exist until the 1770s, where Romanticism began. And the reason Romanticism began was because this was it first came the Enlightenment era, so where people were like really rational and like all scientific and stuff, and logical. And then afterwards, Romanticism came in and said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe we should be mixing philia and pragma, and then we should be feeling all these things that we wrote about in fiction the entire time." Which, by the way, ludus and eros was regularly talked about within fiction, but it was not actually expressed unless it was amongst a mistress, which I'll get into that eventually as well. So I believe the initial reaction of the 1770s, right here, the Romanticism era, was actually the start and slow downfall of civilization itself. And the reason why is because this sudden development of Romanticism, it also was the cause of feminism, which, by the way, in my opinion, is completely destroying society and causing demographic implosion, as well as women who are incredibly depressed and have no clue what they actually want, and they're always chasing their feelings. Yes, and that really does mean, and I'm going to say this is the part that I'm thinking, oh, this might get me banned or whatever, I am completely anti-feminist. I I think the movement was absolutely terrible. The movement encouraged women to move into the workforce as well, which is probably one of the stupidest things in my opinion, instead of actually playing to their strengths. I don't believe that women should be banned from the workforce entirely, but most certainly they should not be encouraged to join the workforce just to improve the economy, which is exactly what's happening today. Now, I don't believe actually men and women are equal. In fact, actually, I believe the exact opposite thing. I believe women are more valued in society than men are, even in a patriarchal society. Matriarchal or patriarchal, women are always more valued. And the reason is because you can always ask a couple simple questions. Who goes to war? Number one. So basically, who ends up dying, permanently losing their life? Who gets on the life rafts when the sinking ship goes down? That's right, women and children. Women. Men aren't the ones getting on. That's right. It's because women and children. Once again, men are basically fodder. And why is that the case? They're cannon fodder. I know it sounds terrible. But they pretty much are. And why might that be the case? That's because men, they don't have the ability to rear a child. Only women have that ability and opportunity to. One man can get 10 women pregnant, but one woman can't get pregnant by 10 men, basically. That's not possible. So unless they do it all cyclically and they have to wait every single time, but that's not going to happen. Or, well, it does actually happen, but it's very rare. It's a lot of promiscuity, though. Anyways, for some reason, people believe that before feminism, which is I find very interesting, they believe that women were treated like slaves or something like that. This was not even close, by the way. This is nowhere near how women were treated back in the past. Women were treated sort of like a minor or a dependent adult. And if you don't know, a man's honor back in the day was tied to how he treated his wife. And it wasn't even close to how slaveholders treated their slaves. So no, women were not treated like slaves at all throughout history. The three main limitations, by the way, before feminism, which I don't really think are big deals if you remove them. I'm sort of surprised why like there's this whole push for feminism when you really look at like the main things that it introduced. The main one was property rights. The second one, well, not the main one, but the first one was property rights. The second one was limited sexual freedom, and the third was limited political participation. Now, honestly, the limited sexual freedom one, this one's like never really controllable, and that's because paternity fraud is inevitable, in my opinion. It's bound to happen. Apparently, it happens like 30% of the time, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, it's a pretty big number, anyways. But besides those three things, they could do literally anything else. And yeah, I know it's a super controversial take. I know, because if you actually piece together all of the things that I'm saying, what I'm saying is basically you have to have multiple different people in order to experience all these different forms of love. And I think it's near impossible to experience all of these different forms of love with one person. I think this is super irresponsible, and it leads to so much argument during the relationship, so much hatred between each other, or resentment, I guess you could say. It's very, very, it's stupid in my opinion. Now, I know, once again, that is very controversial, but actually that's what's been going throughout history for almost all of human history, actually. It's been exactly that, only up until the 1700s, where what's funny is that this was done by both men and women, by the way. Women would experience, and men would experience their forms of ludus and eros one way or another. In this case, men would experience their ludus and eros, and their desire of it, through mistresses, super common back then, while women would experience their ludus and eros through secretive affairs, often leading to paternity fraud, and they would literally cause wars in the process. Giant wars would be caused all because of this paternity fraud. So that's the main reason, I believe, why this limitation existed on women before, or the supposed attempted limitation of sexual freedom. That's the main reason, I think, anyways. But in today's day and age, I don't necessarily think that could be caused, but violence definitely could be caused because of paternity fraud. I think that's a no-brainer. The bottom line, though, is the Pragma pill is basically saying there are multiple different forms of love, and no single person can give you every single one of those forms of love. And the most important thing about the Pragma pill is that marriage is about children, stability, and duty. It is not about passion, not about soulmates, and not about love the way we use that word today, saying, oh, I love you. Oh, you're so sweet, that sort of a thing. That was never part of it. It never has been. And whenever it's been integrated, 95% of the time or a majority of the time, it never works. So hopefully through my science and history explanations and my arguments behind why I think this is how the true pragma pill works, this is the way love itself is actually truly viewed and should be viewed, and viewing it otherwise is completely wrong, and it destroys society. So yeah, I think that humans, obviously, they do have some level of attraction for somebody who looks good, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are the right person to be with, especially when it comes to the philia pragma sense. Now, this is where we also come to, I think this is how you keep generational wealth. I might make a video on that eventually, but this is the way you keep generational wealth. And I think that this has been lost to history for some reason, and anybody who figures this out will be able to keep generational wealth. But otherwise, they cannot. And this is why I think arranged marriages did exist. They existed for multiple reasons, one of which being they have to make sure that the person actually, well, usually it's always on the family side because it's always for the greater benefit of the legacy of the family. So if you wanted to, let's say, befriend France because you were maybe at war with them and you'd like to make peace, well, then you would marry your daughter over to the person over in France, and then that would like establish a peaceful relationship because they would be taking care of your daughter, and you wouldn't really want to go to war because, yeah, once again, the daughter's in your hands and that sort of thing. So I think it's I think this is completely misunderstood today. Love itself is just completely misunderstood, and because of that, we're having all these problems. We're experiencing divorce rates. We're experiencing a lot of unstable children. I would say actually that's probably the biggest part of all of this is the level of unstable children that we are experiencing. I think that is only increasing due to the fact that parenting is becoming so poor. I also think obviously nutrition, diet, and all these other things can play a role, but I think this is probably the biggest one. And anyways, if you're interested in all those videos, go check them out. I made videos on literally every single topic, probably almost every single topic that I can think of that's like really informative and you'll really learn a lot from. All under my homepage. Go check out all my playlists. So yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video doesn't get banned and taken down. I'll see you in the next one.